So, I'm an average tall Caucasian male, about 7 feet tall. I'm 27 years old and weigh 420 pounds. On to the story. It was a late night and I was walking home from the gym when suddenly a car pulled up to the sidewalk next to me. The man driving was of African American descent, so I assumed his car was stolen. The Afro-American man reached in his back seat. It's safe to say he was most likely reaching for a firearm. I dropped all my belongings and ran. For some odd reason, the car just stood there, completely still. It didn't move an inch, so I felt something wasn't right. I took cover behind a bush and waited. About 1 minute, 32 seconds and 14 milliseconds of hiding, I felt a cold breeze over my shoulder. It was a midget Indonesian non-binary person. The person curiously asked,
"What in God's name are you doing in that bush?"
For some odd reason, I felt comfortable with their presence, so I said with an inviting voice, "Why don't you join me down here?" The midget screamed and bolted out to the nearby parking lot. The jarring scream was loud enough to attract the attention of the dangerous African American man. The man approached my hiding spot. He was holding something. I'm assuming it was his gun, or a weapon of some sort. I darted out of there to the local Tesco, where my car was parked. I floored the gas pedal and I was out of there. Once I was at home, I told my friends and family about the incident and the scary encounter with the African American man. No one believed my story. Nobody. Except my sister, who's also my girlfriend. Ever since the incident occurred, I've started working out at a different gym. I thank God every day that I made it out alive. My name is Gerard Williams. I'm 34 years old and live in my mother's basement. I am a Caucasian male about average height. One late night, my mother went and visited my grandma. I was sitting alone on my porch, lubricating my throat with a beer, when suddenly, I heard the sound of leaves crushing. The sound made me jump and I spilled my alcoholic beverage all over my trousers, so it looked like I had pissed myself. I felt so stupid and started swearing at myself. Then I saw it. A dark silhouette was dancing across the forested plains in front of my house. It struck me as odd since people don't usually dance around in the woods, especially not at night. I went back inside to get cleaned up, and I didn't think much of it. Around 5 minutes later, I hear a tap on the living room window. I thought that it's probably just some crackhead in a manic state who wants to murder me, so I went over there to investigate. To my surprise, there was nothing there. In fact, there was no window at all. "I could have sworn there was a window there," I said to myself out loud. I shrugged it off and opened the living room window to get some fresh air. But then, I saw the dark silhouette, but this time, it was a lot closer. It was almost pitch black outside, but I managed to make out the face. It was a bald old man, probably in his late 50s. He was wearing black rectangular glasses, and he had a creepy smirk running across his face. The man said in a menacing voice,
"Good evening, child. What are you doing in there?"
I started to slowly close the window. Then, things got weirder. The smirk on the man's face had faded to a blank expression. The last thing I heard was the man yelling, "You heretic!" Then, he charged towards the window. After throwing several punches at my window, he seemed to give up and began slowly dancing away back into the woods. The last thing I saw of him was his bone-chilling smirk. I can't get his face out of my head, and thinking about what could have happened to me still haunts me to this day. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and I wish to remain anonymous for safety reasons. I recently received my driver's license. One foggy evening about 4 days ago, I was driving my mother's car to a friend's house. When I was out driving, a white van with a text saying free candy on the side caught my attention. Since it said free candy, I thought I might as well grab some for me and my friend. I approached the van and lightly knocked on the driver's seat window. A man wearing a clown mask opened the window and popped his head out. I asked the strange man where the candy was. He answered, "Go wait at the back of the van and I'll bring the candy over." I could tell by his voice that he was of African American descent. I walked anxiously towards the back of the van. After about 2 minutes of waiting, the strange man with the clown mask came out with a large container loaded with candy. He handed me the container, told me goodbye and to drive safe. I went back to my car and drove away to my friend's house. While I was driving, for some reason my GPS just started stuttering and then completely bugged out, so I ended up on a narrow gravel road in a remote area. The GPS started working again and diverted it to a little longer route. Shortly after the GPS started working again, my car started making strange noises from the engine. After only about 15 yards, the car went to a halt. My phone didn't have any service, but thankfully there was a house nearby. It was a sketchy shed-looking building without any lights on, but I decided to give it a shot. I went up to the door and knocked. It felt like 1 second after I knocked that the door swung open. Standing behind the door was a relatively tall, middle-aged man with long brown hair and a scruffy beard. The man didn't strike me as a weirdo as he whipped out his male genitalia when he greeted me. He asked me in a friendly tone what I needed. I asked him if I could use his phone. He answered enthusiastically, "Come in." I stepped inside and was immediately met by a lingering smell. I can only describe it as putrid. He opened a small door and pointed down a stairwell into pure darkness. "My phone is down there," he said. I immediately felt anxious as it was pitch black down there. I decided to walk down the stairs anyway. About halfway down, I turned around and a man was standing there, just staring at me. In the basement, there was an old phone hanging on the wall. I called my friend and provided information about my location and told her I would split all of my candy if she came. I walked up the stairs and the man was nowhere to be seen. I walked out of the house and there he was, digging in the trunk of my car, grabbing the container of candy. I yelled, "Hey!" The man turned around in the blink of an eye. He lifted the container above his head, laughing like a maniac as he sprinted into the woods. I chased after him and heard his crazy laughter, but he was nowhere to be seen. Finally, I couldn't see him nor hear his laugh, so I went back to my car. My friend was already there, and we managed to get home safely. Moral of the story: don't trust anyone, and I mean anyone, with your candy.